Hi all. In this video I'll look at two formulas, max along with if, that will be helpful in making a tax table. I recommend that you type in the first part of this sheet with everything completed except the formulas before watching the rest of the videos. Also, you may want to review how we calculate taxable income, tentative tax, and tax owed before watching the rest of the video. Also note that many of the values used in this video are the 2005 numbers, which are not relevant for your class. The ideas and uses of the formulas, however, are relevant. Recall that the taxable income is the gross income minus adjustments minus exemption amount minus the larger of the standard or itemized deductions. So here in B11 I'm going to put equals the gross income, which was in B4, minus the adjustments, which is in B5, minus the amount from the exemptions, which is the number of exemptions here in B3, times the exemption amount, which in this sheet is in E10, minus the bigger of the itemized or the standard. When I look at those, the itemized is 11,000 and the standard here is 5,000. Well, that's going to be 11,000, the amount in B6. If I hit enter here in the cell, that'll give me the taxable income I want, which is correct. However, this is not really what I want to use Excel for. I want Excel to do all of the work for me. And Excel did do most of the work, but it didn't do one thing. It didn't tell me which one was bigger among the itemized or the standard. The max function will do that. To see that in action here, we get rid of that B6 and type in max, M-A-X, open parentheses, and just the comparison I want to make. B6 versus the standard deduction, which is an E12 in this sheet. So what that last part here, that equals, or that max of open parentheses B6 comma E12 close parentheses, what that's going to do is it's going to look at those two values and return the higher amount. Hitting enter here, I see the exact same taxable income I saw a minute ago of $58,300, which is correct. Nicely though, if I go through and I changed the itemized deduction to 4,000, Excel will automatically appropriately change the taxable income. Alright, hitting Control Z, I'll undo that and leave that alone. But this formula setup will allow me to change any of those values I want, and the taxable income will automatically adjust correctly. Alright, so now I've got the taxable income done. That wasn't too hard. Now let's look at the tentative tax. Now this is where the hard work's going to come in. There are several correct ways to do this, but I'm going to show you one of them. Recall that the calculation for the tentative tax depends on the bracket that the taxable income lies in, and then we're going to add up several of those products. Again, you may want to review your notes on how we did this before we start. To have Excel do this, I'm going to use the if function, which you should have already watched a video about. In cell G4, I'm going to work through the part of the tentative tax that comes from the 10% bracket. To do this, I'm really going to ask myself, or Excel is going to ask itself, is the taxable income less than or equal to this amount here, $7,300? If it is, I'll do one thing, otherwise I'll do something else. So let's go through that. What I want here in G4, I'm going to use an if statement, and I'm going to test it. Is the taxable income, is this amount in B11 less than or equal to this amount right here in F4, 7,300? If it is less than or equal to that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take, well, I'm going to take the taxable income times 10%, times this amount right here in D4. Otherwise, if the taxable income is bigger than $7,300, I'm going to take $7,300 times 10%, and that's how much will be due because of the 10% bracket. I need to close parentheses around this function like I do with all functions. Hitting enter, we should see that this gives the amount from the 10% bracket I would want in this case of $730. Alright, in G5, I'm going to go through how we could do this in Excel. This will be somewhat different than we do in class, but pretty similar. So I'm going to have Excel ask a series of questions. First, I want to check that the taxable income is above $7,300. If it's not, then I'm done. Alright, so is the taxable income, rather, let's try that again. I'm going to check to see if it's less than $7,300. Less than or equal to this amount right here that's in E5? If it is, I'm not going to have any tax due because of the 15% bracket amount. I'm going to put a 0 there. Otherwise, I need to check to see if the taxable income is less than or equal to $29,700. Well, to do that check, I'm going to use another if statement. So I'll have a nested if inside of this. So if here, is that taxable income less than this amount? Well, if that's the case, let's say the amount was $25,000. I'm going to take that taxable income minus the beginning part of the bracket and multiply that amount by 15%. So I really need parentheses around that. Parentheses in my formula bar times 15%. That's the amount in D5. Alright, so I just did two tests. I first tested to see whether or not the taxable income was less than $7,300, right here. Then I tested whether or not it was less than $29,700, less than or equal to, really, is what it should be. Well, if it's not either of those two things, that means it's bigger than $29,700. If that's the case, I'm going to take this full bracket amount, the amount between that $29,700 and $7,300, and that will be the amount I'll multiply by 15%. So that'll be, open parentheses, F5 minus E5, close parentheses, times D5. Overall, close parentheses for that nested inside if statement, and then the overall if statement. And that should give me the amount I want in this cell. The very, very nice thing about having done this in Excel is if I copy and paste this down to the next few cells, it will calculate the right amounts for me. With one caveat, I need to put some dollar signs here in the taxable income. That B11, that shouldn't be moving around. I'll put dollar signs around both parts. Hitting enter here, that's the right amount there. This gives me the correct amount there, and there, and there. And I'll let you do what should be in G9 all by yourself. And if you recall from reviewing your notes, what we're going to do with these three parts here is we're going to add those up, and that'll be our tentative tax. So that'll be the sum of these amounts. The tax owed, one last step here. I'm going to take the amount in B12 and subtract off the amount in B7. And there I'm done. Now again, if you recall what I said earlier, the formulas here are what you should care about. I'll do one last thing here. I'm going to rename this sheet as Tax Table Individual. And I'm done with what I needed here. Have fun excelling.